we've talked about a simple cross-reference or associational model that kind of mirrors the HTML model. Let's talk about now one that's a little bit more sophisticated. It's more sophisticated in a couple of ways. First of all, it's more sophisticated in the kind of referent it'll take. That is, it will take an internal or an external referent. An internal referent being something that's inside our information base, and an external referent being something that's outside our information base. The second way it's more sophisticated is it will take two kinds of references. You can either specify the reference that you want. You can literally type in what will be the hot text, what will be the reference for this association, or you can draw, in the case of an internal reference, you can draw the reference. You can draw the reference from the title of the item that's being referred to. Okay, so far, two different ways that it's more complex than the simple HTML link. The ability to have an internal or an external referent, and the ability to have a fixed that you type in, or a reference that's derived from the title of an item that you point to. Third thing that is more full-featured about this type of association, you can turn on or off the entire association and related text, so that you have a sentence that says, for example, for more information, see this website, and the words this website are hot. Well, if you were to turn off that cross-reference because, for example, maybe that website is down for a while, or you're not sure if you're going to use that link or not, and you just turn off the cross-reference, it'll say, for more information, see, and there'll be nothing there because you've only turned off the link. So in this case, you can turn off the entire cross-reference, including whatever text you want before and after. You can turn off the words, in other words, you can turn off the words for more information, see, as well as turning off the link itself. Okay, so we have three different kinds of sophistication. Now let's look at what it takes to encode that sophistication. We're going to first look at the schema. And in the schema, you can see, first of all, there's the root element called xref complex. The other one we looked at was called xref simple. This one is xref complex, and it has one Boolean attribute called turn off. The Boolean attribute is Boolean. That means it's either true or false. It's a new data type. We haven't talked about Booleans before, but they're pretty straightforward. They're either true or false, 1 or 0, on or off. You can think of it in all those different ways. The way you type them in is either the word true or the word false. So we have a Boolean attribute, and it's called turn off. And notice also that it's optional. And you'll see later on in the questions section for this topic, some more about its optionality. Suffice it to say right now that that's the attribute that turns on or off the cross-reference. If the turn-off attribute is there and it's set to true, then the cross-reference will be turned off and you won't see anything inside that cross-reference. Okay, then it's it could be a sequence here that I put a choice in there, but sequence is certainly possible, and that's more our standard. And the one child of xref complex that you see here inside the schema, here comes a helicopter, I don't know what they're doing over there, is the reference. And the reference is what you would expect it to be. It's the reference. Now, inside the reference, well, let me back up for a moment. The xref complex element, you can't see that on the screen, and the reference element, both of those are type mixed. Mixed means they can take either a text node, they can take child elements and text nodes. So what that means in practice, as you can see down here in the example instance that we have here, there can be text nodes inside both xref complex and the reference element. The text node inside xref complex is the text surrounding. So when we turn off the cross-reference, we're going to turn off that entire xref complex. And that's, in fact, it functions as a cross-reference complex. And instead of the word complex, it's a complex. It's an association of a lot of different parts. And the text that's inside xref complex, but outside the reference, is the text that will be turned off in addition to the reference. The reference itself can have a text node. It'll have a text node if you want the hot text, the reference of the of this association, to be specified by you in the instance. It will be blank. The text inside reference will be blank if you intend to draw the title from the item that you're pointing to. Okay, so Complex? Yes, it is complex. Sophisticated? Yes, it is sophisticated. It's the most sophisticated schema and schema and transform that you've seen so far in this course. So the reference has a set of additional attributes on it. First of all, there's the use title attribute. What do you think that's for? If you set use title to true, that means that the title will be drawn from the item that's pointed to. Now, and we also have a type attribute. The type attribute is either internal or external. If it's external, we expect the referent to be a full URL, right? That makes sense. An external reference, it's going to have to be an absolute path. We're probably pointing to something on the web, so it'll be a full URL. If the type is internal, what do we expect in the referent? Think about that. An internal link. What's going to identify an item inside our system? An ID. So type and referent work together. Does anything force type and referent to work together? No. There's a rule here that's outside the logic of the schema. I could have coded the schema and made it even more complex of a schema so that the schema would enforce that if the referent is internal, the type must be internal. I could have coded it that way, but I decided not to. I decided to leave some of the rules unspecified. And you'll see the schema is all about rules that are more subtle and rules that aren't explicitly specified. The use title. If use title is true, what must be true about the referent? The referent must be internal if use title is true. If use title is true, I intend to pull, excuse me, I didn't mean to say referent there, reference. If use title is true, the reference is going to be pulled from the title of the instance, and the referent needs to be internal. It has to be an internal link, and the reference is going to be blank. There'll be no text node in the reference, and you can see examples if you look at the full instance in that situation. So this is complicated. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of rules that aren't just in front of your face in the instance. And one of those rules is if I say use title is true, referent must be internal, and there will be no text, or there should be no text inside of reference, because the reference will be pulled from the title of the item that's being pointed to. If the type is external, this rule is not being enforced here, but if the type is external, then the referent, if the type is external, then the referent should be a full URL. Okay, so this is a sophisticated schema, and I would like you to understand the schema, even if you don't get as far as understanding the transform, because the transform gets even more complex. And rather than trying to walk you through it, I'm going to let you come to grips with it. I'll point out the significant parts of it in the question section, the part that I want you to pay attention to, and that's specifically the Booleans and the use of the Booleans inside of the transform.